Start this again. Good morning, everybody. Matt Laskowski here, coming to you with another dose of your morning coffee and Photoshop tips along the way. Let's see here. We got a bunch of people joining. You should hear my sound now. I can see audio levels. No, you can't have it. I see audio levels moving up and down. Good. Okay, somebody said good. I can see him move. Okay, I got thumbs up. All right, we're good. We're good. Sorry about that. I actually did press the audio button. Like I have a little sticky note on my thing that says turn microphone on, and I turned it on, and I guess it didn't really go on. So I apologize for that, but good morning. So coming to you from Tampa, Florida, where it is not quite as cold as it is everywhere else in the world right now. So I do apologize to you guys. I know a lot of people are going through some really cold times right now. So I hope everybody's able to stay a little bit warm out there. I got some Photoshop tips for you today. Probably a couple things you didn't even know about. There was a tiny little update to Photoshop recently, and there's one in there that you might not have seen. And of course, this is largely driven by you. So your comments and things, I look, I've got a couple of tips that I jotted down here, but I need you guys to jump in and say, whatever throw out some areas you want to hear some tips on, and I'll see if I can accommodate. If it's a longer tutorial, I probably can't, but if it's a couple little quick tips on a certain area you're looking for, I probably can. Okay, let's see here. God, minus Iowa. Dave Pedrick said minus 25 degrees this morning. Dave, I don't know that I have ever been in minus 25 degrees. I grew up in the Northeast. I grew up in New Jersey. But man, and I've traveled to some places, but I don't know if I've ever been in minus 25 degrees. That's just insane. We got Tom from New Jersey. Hello. All right, guys, let's go ahead here and no further ado, let's go jump in. So let me share my screen with you. So let's go. Tip number one. Tip number one is something, I'll throw something brand new in there that you might not have seen before. It was added in a recent Photoshop update. If you go to your preferences in Photoshop, which they're under a Mac or under the Photoshop menu on a Mac, under the edit menu on a PC, go to General, and there is a little checkbox over here that says Preset Syncing. So that has been something that people have wanted for quite a long time. Whether you use two computers, whether you have to go to a different computer, your presets, meaning your brushes, your gradients, shapes, different things along those lines. I don't think it syncs camera raw presets. I could be wrong. The best way, if you've got a question on what it syncs, is to try it. But what's going to happen is it's going to sync them up to your Adobe Creative Cloud account, and then they will go down to your other computers that are logged into there. So you have to go and turn that on, hit the little checkbox, and then I think the first time you do it, it's going to say like, be prepared that if you have a lot of presets, especially brushes and things, be prepared that could take up some time. So Photoshop might freeze for a little while. You might not be able to do anything while it's trying to sync, because some of those things are actually pretty large in file size. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, if you want to sync your presets and you get a new computer, or you have another computer and you don't want to always have to move them back and forth, again, that's under your general preferences. And there's a little checkbox there for preset syncing. That's tip number one. Tip number two. So this is one that snuck by a lot of people out there. So when Adobe, back in October, Adobe introduced sky replacement. And what's happening is they're doing some really good selections to find your sky. So they introduced sky replacement, but knowing that sometimes people don't always want to replace a sky, but they might want to work on the sky. Then what they also did is, if you come up here to the select menu, you can see there's an option here to select sky. So the sky replacement, if I go into the edit menu down here to sky replacement, you'll see it does a killer job of dropping in another sky, and especially with with all the little details and everything around the trees and everything. So it does a really good job. So I applaud them for taking that selection technology, because it does an amazing job at selecting the sky and giving it to us in a way that if you don't want to do a sky replacement, you can still select the sky. So you come over here to select sky, and what's going to happen is it's going to put, you can see a little marching ants selection around there. So now it's a selection. Like you would do whatever you would normally do to the sky once you've made a selection. So for me, if I didn't want to replace the sky, but I wanted to jump in here and maybe just darken it a little bit because it is pretty bright up there, then I could go to my adjustments panel. And I could go add, you could do brightness, contrast, you could do curves. Please don't think it matters and there's a right way to do it. There's not. Either anything that darkens the sky. So I'll go to curves here, and we'll just go over, and you can see there, we can drag down that curve to make things darker. And you'll see it does a nice job of darkening the sky up there. All right, if I turn it off and then back on, you can see. So all it did was just create automatically a layer mask, which is what all adjustment layers do. If you have a selection, they would automatically make a layer mask in there, and now you can come in here and you can control your sky. If you were taking this a step further, one of the things that you could do, so on the raw level, because this is really where I would recommend fixing something like this. So I would open up this photo into, again, this could be Lightroom or Camera Raw. In this case, I'm inside of Photoshop, so I would just open it up straight into Photoshop. But what you could do here is go in, and we could use our graduated filter to come over here, and we could darken the sky like so. Okay, so I could darken the sky, and obviously it's going to go in and it's going to darken the foreground too. By the way, second little tip for you that might have snuck by, for those of you that are using Camera Raw, and even if you're a Lightroom user, there are times where I open up Camera Raw all the time. Sometimes I don't personally import all of my photos into Lightroom. Like I went out to photograph some birds last week, and I got back and I knew I was just kind of doing it to get out. It was a nice day. I was doing it to get out. I didn't make art. I didn't make anything wonderful. They were mostly birds perched in trees, and it was just to get out and practice and enjoy some fresh air. So really, out of walking around for an hour and taking probably 200 photos, I had 2 that I really cared to do anything with. So I'm not going to import those into Lightroom. Like it's pointless. I don't need Lightroom to manage 2 photos. So I just open them up into Photoshop. But if you're inside a Camera Raw, up at the top here, there's a little eyeball. So I did the graduated filter, and this would work for the radial or the brush tool. There's a little eyeball that you can toggle your brush, graduated filter, radial filter. You could toggle that off and then back on. So you can see a before and after. Again, it's right at the top there. You have to have one of those 3 tools selected, and you have to be using the latest version of Photoshop too. So this is 22.2, and you can see up at the top, mine says Camera Raw 13.1. How to get those, you'll have to contact Adobe if you're not seeing them pop up in your updaters, okay? But anyway, so I went in here and darkened the sky. Of course, I'm darkening the foreground, and I can do masking and things in here, but honestly, Photoshop's faster. So I'll just click open, and that will take this photo, open it into Photoshop. I will copy it and then go over here and paste it. All right, so copy and then paste it over onto that image there. And then what I could do is I could use the original image down here to select sky. Okay, so now I've selected the sky and the bright photo. Then I could go turn on and click on the dark photo. Okay, and I could add a layer mask to it. So just go to layer, just go down here to layer mask, and then just choose reveal selection, because we selected the sky. And now you can see it's just gone in there and it's just working on the sky. So I'm using I'm using Camera Raw, which I think is superior for exposure and toning, highlights, shadows, exposure, those types of things. I'm using that to get the sky to look the way that I want, knowing that Camera Raw and Lightroom strength is not necessarily a complex selection. So I'm using Photoshop for that complex selection there. So that's another quick little tip for you if you wanted to use a little both of them. Let's see here. Okay, I got one more-ish for you. So here's another one. Let me go close a couple of these images here. Oh, and you know what? Now is a great time to remind you that if you have not subscribed to my channel, to please do. So I would greatly appreciate it. This is, we are all watching this live on YouTube. Obviously, right now, I can tell you, as I look over here, let's see how many people we got tuning in. I can't find how many people we got tuning in, but we've got some people tuning in here. So there's probably between 100 and 200 people tuning into this. I can tell you that okay, let's see. Oh no, yeah, about 100, so 96 people. I can tell you there are a heck of a lot more than 96 people on YouTube that can use some of these Photoshop tips. So if you would do me a big favor, 1, make sure you're subscribed. 2, share this with your friends. Okay, if you got photography friends, wherever they happen to be, if you could click the little share button and share it with somebody, I would greatly appreciate it. I say this, I mentioned it last week. I looked at the stats. YouTube's got really good analytics that I can go in and look at my videos. I looked at the stats. So 75% of the people that watch my videos are not subscribed to my channel. So I would appreciate it. It helps me get the word out, and that helps business and all the other things. So, okay, let's see here. Let's go switch back. We're gonna go, I've got this photo open. Here's a really neat trick if you're doing some retouching, and that is to open up another window. So what you can do is come up here to the window menu. You go down here to workspace, okay? And then you're gonna go down to arrange, not right above workspace there. You're gonna go down to arrange, okay? And then there's a little option here called new window. All right, so what you do is you create a new window for your image. And this, believe it or not, this is the one that I had to look up today because I was doing it the wrong way. I was actually creating a brand new document and I wasn't. That's why I had to go look that one up. I'm like, man, I know I can do this. I know I used to do this and I totally forgot how, and I needed to do it this morning. So come over here to the window menu, go down to arrange, and you do a new window. It doesn't create a duplicate document. It just creates yourself a new window. And then you come down here and you go to arrange, and you can go to, let's say, 2 up or something along those lines there, okay? So you go to 2 up, and what that's gonna do is it's gonna make it so it brings 2 images vertically into your screen here. Okay, and now, believe it or not, those 2 images are actually the same image. So what I can do is I can zoom in on one image and the other one stays the same. So I don't have to zoom in down there. I can just zoom in on that one image and I can use my space bar, I can pan around and I can do different things. And then I can go and do something like I don't know, maybe we take the spot healing brush, okay? And I can go in here and I can paint and I can start retouching and doing things, and I can see obviously the zoomed in level here, but I can also watch the bigger picture to see if it's making a difference, okay? So these 2 windows are actually the same exact photo, okay? It's not a duplicate copy or anything like that. So as I do something to this zoomed in photo, you should see here. In fact, I'm gonna go see the little grass down here in the bottom left-hand corner. I'm gonna go retouch that on the right side, like so. And then you see it changes over here. So yeah, if you're zoomed in on a landscape photo, I could see it being useful, but I also see a really good place for this would be maybe portrait photos, where you're doing portrait retouching, and sometimes when you zoom in and you do your portrait retouching and you're looking at things at the pixel level, one of the things that, you lose sight of what the photo looks like as a whole. And sometimes you do something negative to the photo when you're zoomed in that doesn't actually look good on the photo as a whole. So I think having these two windows open can be a really good thing for your retouching purposes. Alrighty, that should be bringing us in for a landing on my tips here. We're about 20 minutes in. We'll cross off about 2 of that from me talking with no audio on. But so there's a couple of tips for him. I jotted a couple down here. Let's see here. We talked about syncing. We got our select sky. We got 2. Yeah, that's probably the main ones I wanted to cover. So I'm going to go take a look at your questions because part of this is supposed to be driven by your questions here. So let me see here. Make sure you hit the like button. Good. All right. So Eric says, good Photoshop for Art Illustrator for beginners. Man, Art Illustrator for beginners. That's a tough one. So I don't really know exactly where to go for illustrators in Photoshop. Most of what I do is going to be photography driven. Let's see. Rob Hoff said, would it be landscape if used on a larger second monitor? So I think what Rob is talking about here is when I went to window, arrange, and I did 2 up vertical. I think you could do 2 up horizontal, and that would do that. And then I think you could go and you could drag this window right here. If you had another screen, you could go drag this window off to another screen. So if you did have dual monitors, you can move that around and that would work as well. Pam says, so now that sky replacement is available, how does it compare to Luminar? Pam, I'm slightly biased in that stuff, in that I would say I would say it beats Luminar, but I mean, it's got a free trial. You need to download it and you need to do a comparison by, with the 2 of them yourself. I think Adobe knocked it out of the park with the sky replacement feature. It doesn't do reflections without a little bit of a workaround, which if you go check out my website at mattkay.com, go to tutorials and scroll down to, I think, November, and I did a video on that one. But, I would say do it wherever you're working. I wouldn't go to a plugin to do it, but if you're a Luminar user, then you should use Luminar. If you're a Photoshop user, you should use Photoshop. Learn to use the tools that you have rather than adding 6 different plugins into your workflow and just complicating things. So I think Luminar, if you're a Luminar user and you're using it for all of your editing, then by all means, they do some wonderful things. As a Photoshop user, I personally think you're better off just learning the software that you have and staying there. So. Let's see here. Gary says common use for lab color. Gary, I don't have a common use for lab color. It's an old color space. Any tutorial I could give you would be me searching for a tutorial to do, and to just say, hey, look at something different. And you can do that search on your own. I don't have anything new. I've seen all the same tutorials that you can YouTube and do for lab color. I don't think it makes a difference. My eye doesn't see it, your eye might. And that's an important thing to remember. Whenever you're doing anything with all of this stuff, everybody's eye sees something a little bit differently. So to the, whoever asked about chromatic aberration, maybe chromatic aberration sticks out to them and they really feel like they have to fix it. By all means, you should. But I don't think lab color has a place in today's current modern photo editing. But again, you can disagree, and if you see a difference when you do a tutorial on it, and again, there's lots you can search on out there, so give it a try, but it's not something that I would use. Patrick said, can you install Photoshop on 2 computers without networking them? Yes, Patrick, and the best place to ask questions like that would be Adobe's website, because they'll tell you exactly how many computers you can install it on. You can install Photoshop on as many computers as you want. You just can't activate it on all of them. I think you can only have 2 active going on at the same time. Okay, but again, go to Adobe's website, and I think you could probably buy more licenses if you had a bigger group or anything. But yeah, you can install it on 10 computers if you want, but you won't be able to activate it at the same time on all 10 computers. It'll make you deactivate it on another one. Let's see here. Keep going through. preferred way to detect and remove a color cast. I would use the white balance adjustments in Lightroom or Adobe Camera Raw. So white balance adjustments, and then what you would do, go switch over to the screen here. White balance adjustments inside of Camera Raw or Lightroom, and if you can't eyeball the adjustment, then what you can do is use this little eyedropper to go click on something that should be grayish toward white. So I could go click on the snow here, and that'll make an adjustment. Now, it's not gonna make much of an adjustment, so I'm gonna artificially warm the photo. Then I'll take my white balance eyedropper and go over here and click on it, and you'll see, it's a little bit bright. Let's see if we can get something, it's not gonna really pick up the mountain there because it's a little bit bright, but you would click on something that should be a grayish white to go in there and try to fix that. The mountain is almost all white, which is why it's not picking that up. I can try, there you go. I can try the reflection, but that'll neutralize it. And again, depending on the type of the photo, you may or may not want to always do that. I think color in landscape photos, I think is a subjective thing. I think you determine the color in your landscape photos. If you get a perfectly neutral photo, I think you're going to have a perfectly flat color photo. Portraits, a little bit different. You don't want somebody's skin tones to be red, so you might want to neutralize a color cast. Let's see, what do we got here? Wow, somebody says getting 10 inches of snow tonight. Somebody's waiting for my video where my buddy Blake Rudis from F64 Academy has to wear Buccaneers gear. We'll have to plan something here. Let's see here. Kurt says, do you have any thoughts on add-on masking panels to Photoshop? No, I think Photoshop's select and mask technology is great. Learn to use it. Masking panels do things in an automatic way for you, but when you rely on that stuff, and things change, you're stuck. You're stuck with a panel for the rest of however long you use Photoshop. Photoshop's select and mask technology, it's what I use for all of my compositing, anything that's out there. So I think that's the way to go. It does have a little bit of a learning curve, but I think you can do it. I think there's lots of videos between me and everything here on YouTube that you can learn to use those tools the right way rather than going out and buying a panel to do it. Let's see here. Do you have any videos on changing sky color, sunset from yellow, orange to more red? So here, let me see if I can do something really quick here for you. So all I did was I dragged a gradient filter down, and I had said you could warm it, you could cool it, but don't overlook the fact that you can go down here to the color section. And again, this is inside of Lightroom. This is going to open up a little color picker here. And now I can go in here and I can move this to any color that I want. Okay, so I can add a little bit of a different color that way if I wanted more of an orangey red color that I wasn't able to get with the white balance. The other thing also is white balance will tend to move the exposure a little bit in your photo. Believe it or not, it actually does move the exposure a bit. That's why that little color thing I showed you is pretty powerful, because it leaves your exposure alone. Okay. All right. I think we should be about wrapping it up here. What do we got going on? Yeah, we should be wrapping it up. Let's see. How do you know it's time to go Photoshop for HDR and Panorama when Lightroom falls short? I don't think the time is ever Photoshop for HDR or Panorama. I think Lightroom and Adobe Camera Raw is where Adobe is putting the latest, greatest effort and technology toward HDR and Panorama. So when you go into Photoshop, you can go down here, or I won't show you, but under the File menu down to Automate, there's a merged HDR. That's old. That's very, very old technology. So you should really hopefully have worked yourself away from those tools, because they are not the most current tools. Let's see. And I think that should about do it. Let's see here. We got HDR, Panorama. All right. A couple requests for tutorials, but I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up because I don't necessarily have photos that I can demonstrate all those tutorials. As I mentioned, guys, if you would do me a humongous favor, you're watching this on YouTube, if you could like it, share it, I would really appreciate it. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. I don't fully know how YouTube works, if you could even know about this and not be subscribed to the channel, but make sure you're subscribed, and if you would do me a favor and share it with a friend or a photo group that you're involved with, let them know about it as well. I'd really appreciate it. So I hope you guys are all doing well. Thank you so much for tuning in to our morning coffee and Photoshop tips this week. I'll see you again next week. Also, swing by the website, mattkay.com. You can click on events at the top and you can see any of the live events or tutorials and things that I do over there on the website. All right, guys, have a great rest of your day, and I'll talk to you again soon.